The bookshelf has already been moved to uncover the hole in the wall, which I hope means our friends are there. Which, wow, it's not like that giant hole is going to tip them off as to how you got in or anything. Hello and welcome to Precontation Points Video Snark. If you came here because you thought that this was an audiobook, please stick around and maybe learn some reading and listening comprehension skills. I read books, discuss what went wrong, and how they can possibly be fixed. I'm continuing my read-through of the Color Theory series by Ashley Bustamante. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. Yes, that's right. For the second time ever, I am doing a sequel on the channel. Yes, I do plan on doing the final installment of the Color Theory series when it comes out sometime next year. Anyway, this is the first trilogy that I'm reading in full on YouTube, so I do have to say something about this. Longtime followers of mine know that, in my opinion, after having read enough trilogies, the middle book is usually the soggiest. So my expectations for Radiant are honestly going to be a lot lower simply by that almost historical standpoint. As usual, I'm trying to go in with a completely open mind, keep my expectations low while somehow hoping for the best, because you never know. In the meantime, since it has been a while, let's do a quick review of what happened during Vivid. Ava Lockwood is a senior at a school that teaches children red or blue magic. She herself is a practitioner of red magic. Her peaceful life is turned upside down when it's announced that a dangerous yellow magic user has escaped from custody. Even worse is that Ava saw him and could probably do something about it. However, when she keeps having dream after dream about Alan Redley, she wavers in her decision to tell the teacher. She becomes hyper-fixated on him and wants to find out why yellow magic is illegal. Things go from bad to worse when she comes face to face with him again. He seems so sweet, and the things he's doing are nothing but mildly harmless pranks, right? Everything inside of her tells her that he's dangerous. Her life begins to unravel when she discovers that her parents hadn't been killed in an accident, but were killed by the same woman who had become a mentor and mother-like figure to her. That Celine herself was at the forefront of the genocide led against the yellow magic users. What's worse is that Celine knew that Ava was an orange magic user and had personally raised her up to be a weapon of war. Together, Ava and Elm fight back against Celine but barely manage to get away. As they're licking their proverbial wounds, other students from the school show up. They explain that they're tired of the cover-ups and lies and that they're ready to fight back. Our story resumes. Chapter 1. We start an unknown amount of time following the end of the first book. Ava and Blake are currently leading a group of 4 former students back into Prism School for the purpose of extracting Ron Boy's little sister. The problem is that even with Jace's secret entrance to the school still a secret to most, the grounds are crawling with benefactors. Our heroes are invisible, but any sounds that they make can still be heard. Ava sees a random squirrel and tries to get into its head to create a distraction. It doesn't work, but one of the other kids makes the branch the squirrel is on break. This does the trick, and all but Ava go inside. Then, for some unholy reason, Ava gets distracted by a butterfly that happens to land near the hidden entrance. This is the girl that y'all expect to save the world. She can't even focus on a simple rescue mission. Inside, Ava's ADHD doesn't let up, but at least her distraction is mildly plot relevant. She looks at the device that had tortured Elm for years and it's also somehow powered the city. It's only Blake that draws her back to the present. He reminds them that they have a mission, so Ava does that task, which is something that probably should have been discussed before you got into the school's secret torture dungeon, but whatever. Their mission isn't solely to rescue Bree, but also to steal some food. There's going to be 38 kids once Bree has been rescued, and as you can imagine, feeding all those people is getting more and more difficult. At the door that leads to the rest of the school, one of the new characters named Kato produces a sort of magical radar device Ava and Elm had cooked up recently. It seems fairly straightforward to me on what it is and how it's used, but the narration acts like everybody is somehow too stupid to understand and spends about half a page explaining this. This also seems like something that should have been explained before they got into the school. Much like outside the halls of the school crawling with benefactors, although I'd also like to point out, isn't the school still functioning as, a school? Wouldn't there be students too? There's a little too much presumption here, but in their case, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt since they don't want to run into anybody. But they can't leave the torture dungeon without alerting others, invisible or not, so they start contemplating other options, which, again, why weren't other plans discussed beforehand? If entrance blocked, then... They notice that the office next door is empty right then and start contemplating ways to break through the connecting wall without alerting anyone. Kato says that it's his old mentor's office. One of them suggests literally cutting through the wall, which, oh yeah, nobody would ever notice that. But they eventually decide to do the initial wall break right as the bell goes up to signal the shift change for the benefactor. Peter says that he thinks that there's a rolling bookcase up against the wall, so they should break it at that specific point. Which I like to say that they're going off from an awful lot of assumptions. How do they know that the bookcase is still there? Who is to say that the person in that office doesn't move the bookcase around a lot? These kids barged into the school with literally no plan and are making dumb decision after dumb decision. We are literally in chapter 1. They have a bit of time to kill until the bell goes off, so rather than simply skipping directly into what they're going to do next, Ava decides to tell us about what she's wearing. She says that she's not wearing the silly yellow dress that made her invisible in the first book. Instead, the locket is the magical device, and that she feels weird to be wearing literally any other color than red. And again, I feel like we're suffering from an intense case of writer ADHD here. First with the butterfly, then with the torture device, and now Ava's green shirt. Plot relevant or not, there's only so many random meanderings people can take before they start to crack. When the bell rings, another one of the red magic users smashes her fist through the wall at the marked spot. By only the grace of the author, they hit exactly where they intended to, which is directly behind a rolling bookcase. They send Cato through to act like he's finishing up a meeting with his mentor, simply so that he can open up the door for everybody to run through. This does the trick, and the benefactors act like they have better things to be doing than monitoring a kid seeking career counseling. From there, they split up to either go get Bree or to raid the school's kitchen. Since this is in first person, we're forced to follow Ava to the kitchens. There, they turn the invisibility off since they have to preserve the magic for later. They stock up on non-perishable items such as beans, rice, and pasta. However, as they're leaving, Ava notices that Blanca is carrying way more than she is and realizes that she should be carrying more, so she goes back, only to run into Dr. Iris, who can see her because Ava never reactivated her invisibility. Ava thinks that the doctor uses a slashing spell on her arm, which baffles her because of the entire do no harm creed that the doctors usually have, but then is baffled when Dr. Iris heals her a second later. Ava is convinced that the doc had a change of heart after hurting her. Ava quickly gathers up the things she's stealing and turns invisible right as the alarm begins to sound. Chapter 2. When I enter the hallway, it's immediately obvious what gave us away. Giant sacks of floating food. We may be invisible, but anything we aren't touching isn't. Blake may not even realize it. The phrase, too stupid to be alive, 100% comes to mind right now. Ava helps Blake get away from the benefactors. They can't see Blake or Ava, but they're throwing chains around in the hopes that it'll eventually hit something. After getting away, they go back to the office. The bookshelf has already been moved to uncover the hole in the wall, which I hope means our friends are there. Which, wow, it's not like that giant hole is going to tip them off as to how you got in or anything. In the secret torture dungeon, they see Bianca's sacks of food, but not the girl. They have a split-second decision on if they should wait for her or not, but eventually they realize that they can't wait around forever and that everybody knows the risk in doing these runs to the school, so they move the bookcase so that it's covering the hole and head outside. In the forest, they run into Elm, who is relieved to see Ava. He says that the other team on mission Save Little Sister returned, but not the other half of their team. When the three of them get back to the secret compound, Elm says that he should have been allowed to carry some of the food. Ava points out that Elm doesn't have super strength like she does. Blake and Elm get into a rather juvenile argument about Elm's lack of magical education, which is honestly kind of tasteless in my opinion. It's not Elm's fault that he was literally held prisoner and tortured for years, but whatever. But then we're also introduced to yet another new character named Nikki, whom I legit do not care about. Her introduction is fleeting, and I forgot about her almost as soon as the narration stops talking about her. It was so pointless and random that I have to ask, did literally anybody bother to edit this? I don't mind introducing new characters, but one simply cannot chuck them at the reader in 1 second, and then make them be so completely and utterly irrelevant in the next second. The business with Nikki now over as soon as it started. Ava looks around at the secondary team on the run to the school and asks if the others made it back. Everybody is kind of upset when they say no. I get how you feel, Blake says, remaining calm, but we can't just charge right in without a plan. No plan? You mean like how you walked into the school, saw that there were too many benefactors, and immediately had to throw it all in any sensibilities? Was it seriously their idea of a plan? But a second later, Bianca and Sarah show up. They say that they left the food behind because they had a better idea. Blanca and Sarah step aside and notice for the first time an object on the ground behind them, Prism's copy machine. We don't have to worry about food anymore. Ah yes, the literally magical plot device that somehow manages to make exact copies of organic material without needing anything but some juice from blue magic users. Perfect! Chapter 3. The chapter opens up with Blanca and Sarah explaining about how they got the copier. Except, I feel like if the author wanted us to care about this, maybe she should have either written this in third person or had Ava go with them to start with, because this secondhand account of what happened is straight up not hitting right. They go where the others are hanging around Jazz and his recently freed sister Bree, and although they're glad that Bree is out, they ask why she's not in quarantine yet. This is a mandatory 72-hour hold simply to make sure that any sort of mind control powers have completely dissipated, which makes sense. We have a paragraph break, despite the fact that the next scene is literally seconds after this is announced. They basically take Bree to. It's literally a pet that they have shoved some furniture and books into. Ava thinks that it's terrible that they have to do it, but everybody agrees that it's for the best. Even Bray understands and almost cheerfully climbs in. A bit later, Ava is helping Elm water his garden. As she's doing this, she keeps thinking about everything that needs to be done. Specifically, now that Bree is with them, Elm has to remind her to breathe and that everything is somehow going to work out. She kisses him, but her mind will not stop tumbling down those dark what-ifs. So Ava asks if he loves her. Elm doesn't say no, but then why are you rejecting me? I blurt, suddenly embarrassed. He shakes his head. Not rejecting. I simply think this specific moment is likely not the best time for, well, it's complicated, I suppose. I honestly appreciate this. The entire idea that the come down from the high adrenaline moment is not right for this. God, it was like that in The Chemist, where Julie told Daniel that he was only feeling Stockholm Syndrome in the after effects of her literally trying to torture him. But in that, it was obvious that Stephanie Meyer was only intent on getting her sexy spy makeouts. The bar is kind of set to don't make out with people who tortured you, but good job here. You'd be surprised at how many people would argue while driving their backhoe over. Embarrassed over this, Ava runs back to the space she shares with Nikki. She knows that she and Elm love each other, but she doesn't know why his refusal to say those three words is hurting her so deeply. Chapter 4. The next day, Ava sneaks out from the cave to simultaneously get some air, but also to practice her yellow magic. She knows it is not safe to leave the cave, but she's also worried about what her stray, untamed yellow magic might do to the others. After making a daisy, Elm shows up. She apologizes over her behavior last night, and he says that he'd never intended to hurt her. What's this? Healthy communication in my young adult trilogy? I'm legit shocked. That being said, he quickly brushes aside any lingering unpleasantness and asks to see what she's been working on. She then produces a weird blorbo creature. He asks her what it is, and he has to do that, wow, you made that, it's amazing, parrot-like bit when she tells him that it was supposed to be a horse. As if to rub it in, he summons an actual horse. She asks him how his own lessons in blue magic are going, which, as it turns out, they're literally not. Unlike Ava embracing her yellow magic, Elm is apparently going kicking and screaming into the fact that he can also do blue magic. She thinks that it's partially because Elm and Blake don't really know each other, and partially because of a weird jealousy thing going on between them. Not over Ava, but more like academic/magically in competition. So instead, she tries to ask him to teach her how to dream hop, which he immediately shuts down. He explains that he was already quite gifted at yellow magic when he hopped into her dreams. She has a long way to go before she can attempt that. When they get back to the cave, there's an anxious air around them. A voice cuts above everybody else and demands to see Elm. This only ups Ava's anxiety since this is supposed to be a hidden rebel camp. The crowd parts to reveal a girl with blonde hair dressed in all yellow. Elm identifies her as Sammy, a friend from his childhood. He instantly wants to trust her, but Ava is quick to remind him that simply because he and Sammy were once friends a long time ago doesn't mean that she hasn't been swayed to evil. Sammy is clearly jealous of Ava and demands Ava call her Samantha. The feeling is pretty mutual. Sammy storms out and Elm follows her. It's only Nikki who grounds Ava in reality. That jealousy is a good look on literally nobody. Let Elm sort this out. Hours later, Elm comes back and tells Ava that he put Sammy in quarantine. Yes, in the same pit with Bree because it's not like they have a second pit lying around. He goes on to explain that Sammy came from outside the barrier, which is apparently now starting to fail, that they've weakened the forces of evil. Ava is confused over that since anything outside of Magnus is supposed to be toxic. But if they would lie and cover up a literal genocide, what else are they lying about? Ava keeps pestering Elm with questions about his relationship with Sammy, how he knows that she's telling the truth, that she's actually not working for the benefactors, etc., etc. I'm just trying to keep us all safe. You're being careless. You're being jealous. I'm sorry, but I'm on Ava's side here. These people literally use mind control powers to cover up a genocide. Any new faces are suspicious. But But again, with the themes of actual healthy communication and being honest with your partner, Ava admits that there is a bit of jealousy there, and in the mood of putting all cards on the table, Elm tells her that he knows that Sammy does hold a flame for him, but he doesn't feel the same way. He only asks that Ava trust him about Sammy, so she agrees. After the quarantine period is over, Ava and Nikki show Bree and Sammy around the cave. They lay the ground rules, like you can't leave the cave unless there's a really good reason to. As you can imagine, Sammy acts like she's somehow better than their silly rules. My main problem is, I get that Sammy has been living outside of Magnus for at least, the past decade or so, but yet when she got back in and randomly stumbled upon her childhood friend camped out in the forest, she thought, what exactly? That he and 40 of their closest friends decided to start pooping in a river for funsies? There must have been some reason why, as a child, she left Magnus. Maybe her parents saw the writing on the wall and got out of Dodge. And when she came back, she didn't see the increased military force or warnings about how dangerous yellow magic is. I feel like her singular purpose here is simply to step into the role of mean girl. She exists to complain about stuff that literally nobody is forcing her to do. On the completely opposite end of that, Bree is actually eager to be there, and not simply because her brother is there. She and Jazz were popular in school, so several of the others have already welcomed her into the little rebel camp. As the two of them leave Ava and Nikki turns to Ava and is like, I don't like Sammy. A lot of people have expressed distaste for her. Her attitude is bad, and where did she even come from? Sus. Ava is torn between her wanting to respect Elm's wishes for trust in regards to Sammy and protecting everybody else. They round a corner only to find Elm's garden completely destroyed, which is not only devastating because of all of the hard work he put into it, but it also means that they won't have any fresh fruit at all. Ava obviously runs to get Elm, who is with Sammy. And I'm gonna say right now, Sammy's reaction towards the news of the destruction has the air of false surprise. I'm kinda waiting for that shoe to drop with her. But anyway, they gather everybody around and Ava tells them what happened. Some of the others say that it's kind of suspicious that this happened right when Bree and Sammy showed up, except that people already know Bree, so the suspicion falls 100% onto Sammy. But there's nothing to be done right now. Blake points out that they need to get food and suggests that they should go into Violet City. Ava agrees that it will be easier to move around, especially after how they broke into the school yesterday. Ava asks for volunteers to go on this mission. After getting a team together, everybody starts to disperse, but the mood is tense and it's obvious that people aren't going to forgive anytime soon. They might be fighting against an oppressive government, but their top beliefs that yellow bad are going to take more than a few months to deprogram. Elm tells Ava that he's going to go with her and the group to Violet City. She protests because if she's leader A and he's leader B, who's going to stay behind and watch the cave? He counters with the idea that since her long trip to the city will need a skilled magic user on hand to recharge the invisibility devices. Nikki proposes that Sammy should go. Ava hates that she's right. This would free Elm up for protecting the cave while they're gone. Sammy clearly hates the idea, but Elm tells her to do it. Thanks for listening to my Book Snarker on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book snarks, always free and updated every morning. The only edit to Patreon is to become a member without paying. You'll get access to the same things on Tumblr, but on Patreon. Supporters can have access to so many more book snarks starting at $1 a month. Also new is a 1-week free Patreon trail, so be sure to check that out. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. Also, a huge shout out to Bunker Bash for making a sizable one-time donation. Thanks! If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my snarks so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well. Just $10 per chapter. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of spicy short stories and 2 full-length novels. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys!